Hi, and welcome everyone to Cape Ann ARTWaves. I'm Christine Fisher, your host of today's program, coming to you by way of 1623 Studios, located in Gloucester, Massachusetts. My fellow co-producer Jacqueline Ganem DeFalco and I want to give a huge shout out to our 2021 sponsors. They are Prince Insurance Agency, MK Fisher Visual Artist, the McDermott McCarthy team at Gibson Sotheby International Realty, Common Crow, and our partners C Arts and 1623 Studios. We also want to send a note of gratitude to Steve Lacey and Pat Verga for their contribution of the wonderful music. Cape Ann ARTWaves shines a spotlight on our talented artists and makers. And today I'm very happy to welcome the terrific contemporary artist and art champion, Carin Doben. Carin's work reflects her high energy and resilient spirit. Living in Swampscott, Carin is very active within our greater community. She's a member of the National Association of Women Artists, the Abstract Artist Group of New England, which is part of the Newburyport Art Association, the Experimental Group, which is part of the Rockport Art Association and Museum, and the Marblehead Arts Association, among other affiliations. Carin attended the University of Pittsburgh, earning her Bachelor of Arts in Art History. She later went on to get her Master's in Education at Lesley College and has participated in Montserrat College of Art's continuing education program. Carin is a well-rounded, robust talent, and she is having a great moment right now, I must say. She has a great nose for how to promote her work. She's what I fondly call a hybrid. Welcome, Carin.
Hi, Christine. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, it's wonderful to see you. Let's get started. Give us some insight into your journey.
Well, my journey started as a child, as many artists do, and I love to draw. But in high school, I went to the Art Students League in New York City. That was my real start. The smells, the atmosphere, everything about it made me want to be an artist. However, my parents discouraged my being a fine artist, and I went on to major in art history, which without a PhD doesn't mean much.
Right.
I continued to take courses, but eventually in 1985, I started a program called Art Quest, which brought art history into the schools as a vehicle to teach creative thinking and learning. It's still going on today. It's led by Perry Pomeroy, and I think visual arts are a very important part of education for children. I retired in 2012 when my journey at Montserrat really began. I have continued to take classes at Montserrat until this very day.
Well, you are way ahead of your time. I mean, starting that program, that's just, absolutely terrific. And we have an image, Carin, and I believe this image was created when you were a young person attending the Art League in New York. Such a prestigious place to develop your craft. Talk to us about this piece.
Well, Christine, it's very interesting that at our Students League, you drew realistic life drawing, which I'm still doing today. I can draw the human figure probably better than most other things that I can do. However, I started to abstract the figure. And this was really the very beginning of my career as an artist, to take something and abstract it. And it's loose and gestural, which is very much a part of my style.
Right, it has so much energy. That's a great segue and jumping off point to talking about how you would describe your work. I'm looking at that incredible piece behind you, which just expresses so much freedom. But tell us in your own words how you would describe your work.
My work is abstract, as I mentioned. However, it is often non-objective, meaning it is not based on anything that I see. But my work is gestural. It is very spontaneous and has a lot of action to it. And I would say the hallmark of my style is really my color.
Yes, for sure. And we have a piece here, Carin, that we want to share. Breathe in and breathe out. It happens to be on your website, and I think it's really wonderful. It really speaks to everything that you're talking about.
Yeah, that piece in particular is very much internal.
Mhm.
It is non-objective, it is gestural, and as you can see, it is a triptych, which is another sort of hallmark. I do a lot of triptychs,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they allow me space. I think
Right.
space is another part of my style.
Offers
And
you a certain sense of freedom, it seems to
yeah,
me. Mhm.
and hence breathe in, breathe out. Yeah.
Well, let's use this as a jumping off point to talk about your inspirations. And we have two more pieces, A Fine Line, number 1 and 2. Talk to us about these pieces and just where you get your inspiration.
My inspiration comes from many sources.
Mhm.
However, it could be an image on the television, and I will pause my TV, thanks to technology, take
Mhm.
a picture of it with my iPhone, and I will tuck it away in what I call my source material file.
Mhm.
I digital file as well as a paper file of magazine articles. Just this morning, I set aside a flyer that I got with a lot of words on it that were words that I could see using in a collage or
Mhm.
inspired. So my inspiration comes from nature, from color, from
Mhm.
everything around me.
Yeah. Well, with respect to A Fine Line 1 and 2, I have to say that one of the things that I really gravitate to is your writing in both of these pieces.
Yeah, I often write on my pieces
Mhm. Mhm.
because they are coming from within. And
Mhm.
what has inspired me to create the piece, like A Fine Line, is something that was very disturbing, something that was going on in the world around me.
Mhm.
And you cannot help but be influenced by that.
Mhm. Right, and use those opportunities for expression, right?
Absolutely. And for a jumping off point, yes.
Yeah, jumping off point is right. So let's talk more about this because I feel that your art practice, certainly mine as well, it's all about healing, really. It's all about expressing our deepest inner feelings and putting it all out there and taking risks. Let's talk about what your particular art practice means to you.
My practice is my soul. And I said, I began this interview with you saying that I always wanted to be an artist.
Mhm.
Well, I taught for 30 years. I had to wait until I was in my 60s and retired in 2012,
Mhm.
back to Montserrat. That's a lot of years of pent up energy and thoughts and feelings
Mhm.
that I wanted to express. And I think everybody has a need to express.
Right, right, exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your experience in the studio.
Well, I do have my husband to thank for that studio. He had it built for me, and it is really so much a part of my practice.
Mhm.
I get up in the morning, I open the doors to the studio, as you mentioned, open onto the garden, these big French doors. I have skylight, a beautiful light. I turn on classical music. I sit down and I meditate, thanks to my mentor, Bernd Hausman.
Mhm.
I meditate for anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes. It really depends.
Mhm.
And then I open my eyes and look around me. If I've had a piece I have started that I'm working on, I take quite a bit of time looking at it and considering what my next steps are going to be. That's also from Bernd. And then if I'm starting a new piece, I've prepared myself for the morning. I've done it the day before, hung up a canvas or paper, whatever. And then I consider what I'm going to do. And I attack my surface with large brushes, a color. And once I step back from that and look at it, I consider what my next steps are going to be.
Mhm. I love it. It's such a counterpoint, right? Meditate and attack. It's just
Yeah.
and it works for you, obviously.
Yeah.
You have been so busy, Carin, over the last year since the pandemic hit. Are you seeing new themes that are emerging in your work?
Oh, yeah. This pandemic has impacted the entire world. And you
Mhm.
help anybody cannot help but be impacted by that.
Mhm.
However, it has freed me up in a way that was unexpected. I
Mhm.
came back from Florida early due to the pandemic and went into the studio and immediately started to work on these very large canvases. It gave me freedom of expression. Being solitary was helpful to me.
Mm-hmm.
And what was going on in the world gave me a need to be extremely productive and expressive.
Mm-hmm. Right. It gave you a place to, and a means to really channel your energy. We have a piece here that we want to talk about, Elusive, that is tied directly into your imagery, right? Regarding
Yeah.
the pandemic. Talk
Yeah.
to us about this piece.
And actually, Elusive is one of a series. I did a whole bunch of these, and those red textural circles kept appearing in my work. And where were they coming from? They were coming from the news on TV, and the fact that those red circles could be impacting me
Mm-hmm.
and my family and the people I loved and the world. And therefore, I kept painting these paintings, and that is a theme that recurs. Yet you can see that my color stayed positive, strong, very much a part of who I am as an artist.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, we can just hear it in your voice too.
Yeah.
You have a strength about you that I've always gravitated to. I want to ask you a question that is on the minds of many artists. How do you know when you're done, Carin? I mean, you're so prolific with your work. Talk to us. Any tips there that you can share?
Not only is that a struggle for every artist, but I keep reading it, especially since the pandemic, when I'm going on to all these different websites. It is a very personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are paintings I have thought were finished, and a year later, I have gone back to them.
Mm.
Sometimes a painting will tell me it's finished.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to accept that you've made a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to discard something. But it is really an innate judgment call, I think, for every artist. I try very hard not to overdo.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's a mistake we all make.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's difficult. I mean, it's just such a process, as you say. You have to kind of let go and
Yeah,
really check in with your gut. You are on fire, girlfriend. You have so many shows coming up. Talk to us about the marketplace and where you're showing your work.
well, I feel like I'm on a roll, Christine. It's very exciting to me. Most importantly, I'm in several shows right now. I have a piece hanging at the Miami Botanical Garden with the National Association of Women Artists, the Florida chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a piece that was accepted for the National Association in the Massachusetts chapter coming up in at the Marblehead Arts Association.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My biggest coup, I feel, for myself is I was just accepted to the Museum of Art at Cape Cod, the Cape Cod Museum of Art. That show will be running through June. It starts sometime in the end of March, I believe. And they had, because it was a national exhibition, over 500 pieces submitted and only took 60. And I was really pleased. And this is something artists have to think about when they're marketing their work and when they want to sell or be seen, to consider what shows you enter. And then this summer, July 13th through the 25th, the Abstract Artists Group of New England, which you mentioned at the beginning, at the Newburyport Art Association, will be having a show.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a small group and a wonderful group.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations on all your wonderful momentum. That's really terrific. Any advice that you have regarding pop-ups, Carin?
Well, I read an article probably 4 years ago in the New York Times about these pop-ups that artists were doing. Galleries take big commissions. I would never want to put the galleries out of business.
Yep.
However, if you're an emerging artist and you're trying to build up your reputation and you are not accepted at some of these prominent galleries, having a pop-up show, having a good mailing list,
mm-hmm.
getting people word of mouth, and having them come to a venue, whether it be your garden like I've done, or a library, or even a hospital, can be very beneficial to an artist.
Really gets your name out there, right? And your work out there. So it helps to just build up brand awareness, I think, right?
Yeah. And having a mailing list and doing your paperwork, which no one likes to do, can be very significant.
Yes, yes. Well, that's a good jumping off point. Let's talk about pricing. You're one of the brave artists that wanted to talk about this today. And I so appreciate that, because I think so many artists are, just somewhat foggy on how to approach putting a price on their work. What tips can you share?
Yeah, well, because I worked in a gallery for 10 years,
yes,
and because I was a consultant, I basically advised my artists to keep a journal of their work and how long it took them, what they spent on their art supplies, and their size and saleability, looking at the work. And you have to sort of create a formula for yourself. I increased my prices very gradually. And as I started to sell more work, I kept increasing the prices. Now, I have been told at times that I don't value my work enough and put a high enough price on it. On the other hand, you have to consider, do you want to sell your work? So there's a fine line, not just a title, between pricing it reasonably and overpricing.
Right, right. It's more art than science. I hate to say it, but I mean,
yes,
really is more art than science. As we close out here, Carin, you have two magnificent pieces that we're going to show that are inside a collector's home. And I love the fact that you're showing how these are hung and how they just fit in so beautifully into your collector's decor. Talk to us about these two pieces.
Yeah, I think the sale of these is good advice for artists, because the woman had this very large condo with an 18-foot wall. And she knew I had a couple of big pieces. And I drove 4 pieces down to Florida. They barely made it in my car. And when I got to her condo, it was a little bit, I have to say, a little drab. It was beautiful, but it was not alive.
She needed art.
She needed art. And I brought in the pieces. I hung up one piece, and she said, I think I could use both of those. When I see that up on the wall, it is so exciting. It brings my whole condo alive. It makes me happy.
And it does. They're exquisite pieces. They fit in so beautifully. They really refine her space.
Yeah. And so my advice to people too is, don't bring one piece. Don't bring 2. Bring a selection if you're going into someone's home.
Yeah. Yeah. Good advice. Good advice.
Yeah.
So Carin, where can we find you? Give us your URL as we.
I'm going to spell my odd name. It's CarinDoben.com. And I'm here, and I will take any questions. And
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us today on Cape Ann ARTWaves. I love talking to you. We could talk so much longer. Thank you for sharing all of your tips. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. It was a pleasure to be with you today.
Oh, good, good. I love it. I want to also thank our sponsors, Prince Insurance Agency, MK Fisher Visual Artists, the McDermott McCarthy team at Gibson Sotheby International Realty, Common Crow, and our partner C Arts and 1623 Studios. For our listeners, our program can be viewed on 1623 Studios Media, social media platform, and on Channel 12. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm Christine Fisher. Until next time, thank you.